to the Gone Gold podcast. I'm your host, Simon Hill. As always, on this episode, I have not laughed so much doing one of these podcasts since we started. This is an interview with Simon Miller. Not just the internet sensation, but one hell of a wrestler. We talk about everything from his Bullet Club incident, which went viral. We also talk about his in-ring performances, his debut, and what it's like to be the man at WhatCulture. All that and so much more. He's larger than life. Here is the interview with Simon Miller. So yeah, Simon Miller, thank you so much for joining me on the Gone Gold podcast. I have been super stoked about getting you on, dude. We've crossed paths in many walks of life, and this was the perfect opportunity, I thought, to actually sit down and have a chat with the Simon Miller.
With the one and only.
The one and only.
Actually, there is another guy. I think he makes shoes or some kind of clothing, and there was a movie called, Who is Simon Miller? I mean, it's nothing to do with me. But
so you didn't fancy that life of making shoes?
No, I don't know much about shoes. I'm one of these guys that has had 10 pairs of shoes my entire life. I probably need to buy some more shoes. I need to buy more shoes, but I'll take being the Simon Miller.
Yeah. We'll make it about the Simon Miller for this podcast episode at least. But this is the joys of technology right now, Simon. So I don't need to be sat next to you with microphones and lights and cameras and everything. We've got the joys of Skype these days.
I know.
I find that really cool.
It's crazy as well because you can turn on the TV now and lo-fi entertainment, as they're calling it, is taking over. I watched Graham Norton's show the other day. And it was just Graham Norton interviewing people via Zoom and via Skype and via WhatsApp and Facebook. And everyone was just accepting of it because we all understand what's going on. So yeah. I think that is the crazy thing. The last time this happened, you couldn't just jump on here and talk to someone with little face things in the corner. It is, I think I don't want to get too hippy trippy, but we do take things for granted sometimes. We are living in an amazing era, really, in many ways. Hence why when we are stopped from going out the house, we're like, what the hell's going on? So it's nuts.
Absolutely. I think it's really cool as well that people like ourselves have kind of built a living around being on the internet and stuff, and having this kind of opportunity to speak to obviously the likes of yourself and others is just, I can sit in my front room and do this, and no one knows if I'm wearing pants or not. No one knows.
I never wear pants.
The glitz and glamour of me standing alone in my front room, is it's not all it's cracked up to be this side, but it's a lot of fun having people like yourself on.
That's very kind, man. I look forward to it, dude. I appreciate you reaching out. It still blows my mind when someone says, Simon, let's do an interview. I'm like, what? Okay. That's crazy.
Well, I guess the first question is why?
Of course. Here's why. There's no answer. I don't know.
What is the answer to why?
What is the answer to why? Well, I mean, technically it is here's why, but that doesn't really mean anything out of context. But that's the cool thing about all of that. Again, I always say this to everybody. I don't know how that became my thing. I really don't know how it became my thing. I remember pitching the video series to WhatCulture, the Y series as it was called at the time. But that was that's 4 years almost, I think, top of my head. So to think here, again, people will still say, hey, we'll start the conversation off just by asking what. I will take it, don't get me wrong. I'm very proud of this fact. But to say I had some kind of grand plan would be an absolute lie. So maybe that's the answer is it's a lie. That's the problem.
Well, I mean, you've obviously built quite a personality and a persona based around obviously the why question, the ups and downs, which are now going worldwide, Simon. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did you have any intentions of these going to the WrestleMania? People holding signs, give me an up or down, Simon. This must have blown your mind when you first saw this.
Oh, no, it still does. It still blows my mind every time. Anytime I either see it on television myself or somebody tweets it to me or Instagrams me or whatever, I always take a moment to just try and process it right, okay, so somebody sat down in the house and it's amazing. It kind of works on twofold. Number one, it's just amazing because, of course, it's amazing. How could it not be?
Obviously.
it's really, and everyone always rolls their eyes when people use this word, but it's the only one I can think of. It's really humbling to think that somebody enjoys that nonsense that I do to such a degree that they want to at least try and showcase it in the community that the wrestling community that we all love. So I feel incredibly privileged that it happens. I say it all the time. If somebody had told me, Miller, when you're 13, you're going to be reviewing Raw as an adult, and then people will write your name on a sign and they'll ask you to review said sign, I would be like, I don't know what any of that means, but it sounds amazing. So yeah, I'll take that. So genuinely, I don't think the people that bring these signs realize if I'm having the worst day ever, and then I find that out, the rest of the day will be fine. It just will be fine. I will ride that feeling until the midnight hour, because it's just a nice thing for someone to do, if we're honest.
It really is. It is. And you know, these ups and downs are, you know, not just obviously showing up at WrestleMania shows, but where did the whole concept for that come around, Simon? Like, was this something you just sat down? Was it, you know, you were eating food and think up or down? Where did it begin?
Well, to be fair, now the Y series, I will admit, I pitched to WhatCulture. I wanted to have my own thing because all the other presenters had their own thing, and I thought that would be a good one. But now Ups and Downs was actually at WhatCulture before I even jumped on board. It used to be done by me and Jack the Jobber, bless his heart, good guy. And then I don't really know why. I guess it was just I started doing it a little bit, and then there was an opening to do it more, and I was happy to do it. I will say that if you go back and watch the Ups and Downs then compared to the Ups and Downs now, it's a very different show. I've tried to make it my own as best as I can, but no, I think the idea of Ups and Downs was just a thing on the internet at the time, and thankfully the WhatCulture one has been the one that's, you know, kind of held on for all these years. So no, I probably would have come up with something crap like the Goods and Bads, and be honest. What are you talking about? So yeah, that's a WhatCulture original. I'm just lucky, I guess, in the sense that, you know, they gave me a lot of free reign and creativity to, you know, run wild and kind of, make it my own, I suppose. Or at least that's always been my plan. That's always been my goal.
It certainly worked. I mean, obviously, you know, being that worldwide phenomenon that you are now, Simon.
Yeah.
Also on WhatCulture over the years, especially during WrestleMania season, you guys go out there. You've had some incredible experiences out there yourself. WrestleMania Access. I watched several of your interviews at WrestleMania Access. Now, I find them absolutely hilarious. But how did the talent respond to some of these said interviews? Were some of them planned, not planned? I mean, it looks very natural reaction. So
So for context, that's actually just before WhatCulture. That was. No, was it? No. I had started working there. I don't remember, but that was when I was doing, basically like. Well, I just really enjoyed Sacha Baron Cohen, to be honest, and I thought he did the best interviews, because I can see a traditional interview anywhere, but I can't see a dick interview anywhere. So I thought, I'll start doing that I started doing it with video games originally, and I thought I could do it with wrestlers. But no, I did sit down with all of them and explain the concept. However, I think the reason a lot of the reactions are real, like Finn Balor, for example. When I explained the concept to him, he looked at me and said, "Of course I will do it, but I want you to know, bless him, he's such a nice guy. I find this very uncomfortable." He's like, he goes, "I'll enjoy it," but he goes, I'm a bit worried," which is why, in the Finn Balor one, he does seem quite reserved, whereas in the New Day one, they just attack me like a pack of wolves, because like, this is what we do. So no, I love doing that, and that was actually, I should shout out 2K for that one, because they are the people that arrange the interviews, and they are the ones that went to WWE PR or whoever, you know, signs them off and says, "Look, trust me, it will work for his audience." And it did. You know, those videos did great, and hopefully, you know, it did what they were meant to do. But no, they're some of my best memories when it comes to wrestling interviews. And I got a hug off Paul Heyman. Who can say that?
I know, twice.
Too hard.
I was just like, for me, Paul Heyman was the one that really played up to it. Like he went in a totally Paul Heyman-esque way. You know, only Paul Heyman would do that, and it was phenomenally. I was just laughing all the way through it. I was just like, this guy's so switched on, man. It was brilliant. But you know, 2K are fantastic. We've both worked with them in different capacities. I assume the likes of Aaron Cooper would have been around about there organising those.
Yeah, good on Aaron. He got it. That's the thing. Some people never got it. They got it. No. So, you know, I can only say thank you for even giving me the opportunity to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. And I've got to ask you this: which is your favourite Blackpool peer?
See, William Regal was awesome as well because I was just spouting nonsense, but he, being William Regal, the sharp guy he is, was like, "Well, I'm just going to tear this guy to shreds by literally. I would take everything he says literally and just twist it back." But that's the cool thing about those interviews because you could probably say if we were just sort of calling stereotypes, you'd go Samoa Joe will get it, young, hip, quote unquote wrestler. William Regal, old school. William Regal got it just as much as anybody else. They understand characters. They understand what they wanted from me. And because I'd said to them, look, man, just, hit me hard, rip into me. He was like, dude, I've been doing that for 35 years. It's not a problem. Which is why in many ways it's great to do that with wrestlers because they will perform for you. And some people may not. So, yeah, bless William Regal. What a hero.
What a gent. What an absolute gent.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
you mentioned gaming. Just let's get into the Simon Miller side of that. Because that's where you started in gaming journalism, wasn't it? Before making that transition eventually into wrestling.
Yeah, which seems nuts now, given that it was, let's not say how long ago it was, a long time ago. But yeah, it's weird too, because wrestling, again, sounds so cheesy, but true, was my first love. But I think when I left university and tried to figure out what to do, it wasn't really, especially in this country, it wasn't really, well, unless you're going to become a wrestler, which I tried and failed many a time. But it was, I couldn't figure that one out. But games, which I also loved, I was like, well, games, there's official Nintendo mag, official Xbox mag, there's OPM and all these third-party magazines. I was like, and I write, that's what I've kind of studied at university. Surely I'll be able to merge these in some respects. And again, very blessed, very lucky to be able to do that. But yeah, that's where I don't know whether I, developed myself as a person or came up with concepts that I would now use. I don't know. But yeah, it did give me, because the way I look at it, if I hadn't got into video games, I wouldn't have become obsessed with YouTube. Because I was like, I found YouTube before even it had blown up as almost, because games were the big thing associated with it. I had stumbled across YouTube even before that was a thing. And I was like, well, how can I, try and tap into whatever this is? Clearly didn't have had to let it become successful first and just jump on the back of that. But yeah, so I sometimes look back and think, oh, wow, maybe I needed to go through all of that to get to wrestling. I don't know, but no, I enjoyed my time in games. It's just a fun industry, as you well know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those industries, I think, once you find that passion for it, it's very hard to let it go, and I think you're always attached somehow to the gaming world, and we've both had plenty of experiences in that, but you kind of merge both of them together more recently, I guess, with WWE 2K and obviously the wrestling world. You were the voiceover, if many people didn't know, for that advert.
Yeah, which was, again, shout out to Double Jump. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that or not. I'm sure I am, but they were the production crew, involved in doing that. And again, they're just guys that I've known for years who I get on well with. And as the story goes, I'm sure they don't mind me telling this. Oh, well, who cares? No, I care. I care if they watch. I care. But yeah, the story goes that, they had actually recorded some voices themselves. And the feedback from 2K was, you don't really sound like wrestlers. Can you not get someone that sounds a little bit like a wrestler? And they went, Miller sounds like a wrestler. And yeah, that was an awesome one. Again, it's another one where I never thought that was on a bucket list of things to do, become the voice of WWE 2K, whatever. But then when it came up and I realized, well, I've been watching those adverts for about 15 years or however long they've been going on Sky. So even just to have that, yeah, it was awesome. It was great. And I got to stand in the booth and just, over and over and go, WWE 2K19. Just like, this is fantastic. I had a really, really good day. So yeah, I don't think it was ever, if you'd asked me, say 5 years prior, Simon, it sounds, I don't know really, but now that I've done it, I really smile when I think about it. And it's great as well. It just sounds awful, but it's true. It's the 2020. When you get somebody on Twitter, just like message you going, Simon, you the voice of, and you're like, yes, I am. Yes, that's me. It's a great feeling. Like, it really, really is.
I can imagine like that first initial time you hear it, you're watching Raw or SmackDown, and on comes that advert, and it's your voice. what are you thinking at that moment? Surely it's just like, hang on, is that me? It
Yeah,
sounds like me.
like that, like it's not actually me, and that life is really weird and I don't understand it anymore, but I really appreciate it. Yeah, it was nuts, especially because I had guys that I used to watch wrestling with back in school. I'm talking about young school, who I have just fallen out of touch with because that's how life works.
Yeah.
Chucking me a message on Facebook going, WWE 2K guy, like, that's me. It's so strange because again, it's not something I think I ever would have gone after because I wouldn't even know where to have started. So I probably wouldn't have even have come up with a path. But for it to very, very nicely land as it did, yeah, I love it. I love it. And, of course I went out and said, can you send me the clips please for my future brain, which they very nicely did. So yeah, that was a cool one. I think the first time I did that was 2019. And I remember when I got to the end of the year, maybe 8, whatever, but I got to the end of the year and I was like, that's the coolest thing I've done this year. And it wasn't even on my radar. So, yeah, that was awesome.
It's crazy. And I guess because of that game coming out so late, to end the year on something like that must be phenomenal. Like, that's a childhood dream of mine, Simon. So,
Well, you could be next. Although you're going to have to say BT Sport. That's the thing. You're going to have to.
Yeah, it's changed now to BT Sport. Yeah. Unfortunately, though, you've got this really nice, articulate London accent. I have this Birmingham twang that doesn't do me any favours.
You never know, dude. It all depends what they're looking for. I mean, I used to get in trouble with my voice because it travels. It's got a lot of bass in it, so it travels. And now I like to think, I showed you, because I used to get moved around offices and university lecture rooms. Simon, you're too loud. You laugh, and it just reverberates throughout the whole thing. And now I'm like, well, I showed you, didn't I? I showed you. So.
And they're a successful voiceover artist.
Yeah.
Look at that. Absolutely phenomenal. Right, so we touched up on the WrestleMania Access stuff a little earlier. Now, I don't think there's going to be anybody watching this that doesn't know about this story in some capacity. But tell me about the Bullet Club incident.
Look, Bullet Club were making a noise, right? Bullet Club were making a noise, saying what culture this and what culture that. We're like, all right, cool. We'll turn up to your party that you're hosting across the road from WrestleMania, which we did. Yeah, look, I mean, mate, it was the coolest thing ever. Obviously, it was something that we had chatted to Tama Tonga about, who was just the nicest man ever. He was really, really smart. He'd seen Bullet Club version, whatever you want to call it, go off in their own different directions. Wanted to make it his own, understood the power of the internet and YouTube, and said, hey, man, let's have some fun on the internet and let's do some stuff, which we did, and it was great. And it was the culmination was the Bullet Club block party. And, the idea was at some point, we would be chased away by the Bullet Club because, of course, like in the world of their party, they are the good guys and we are the bad guys. Of course, even if somebody agreed with our stance, you're on their turf, and we were all cool with that. Unfortunately, nobody had told Haku, who is Tama Tonga's dad, for people that don't know. Nobody had told Haku, or Meng, if you're a proper old school fan. But yeah, nobody had told him that it was, we'll use the term, a work. So when he sees his son, who has put his heart and soul into that thing, which Tama Tonga did, and if anyone doesn't know that, the man deserves all the respect in the world. But when you see that, and then you see a bunch of assholes running out of there, and especially the Samoan family, which are like this, they're tight at the tight. Even people that aren't their family are their family. Like, it's crazy. And so he's like, I'm going to kick these guys' asses. There's a clip out there. Most people have seen it where he swings a punch. Somehow I turned into Muhammad Ali and had better reactions than I've ever had in my entire. I don't know how I did it, but I mean, if he had hit me, I would have probably cracked my skull. I don't know. Now, again, just to completely ruin the facade for everyone, when Tama Tonga had told Haku couldn't have been nicer about it. Oh, I'm so sorry. The nicest guy ever. But in that moment, all the stories I ever heard about Haku were 100% true, and I thought I was going to be number 101. I was like, sugar. But luckily, somehow, I turned into the greatest boxer that ever lived, and I didn't get mauled. But but the thing is, it made it even better because it worked out exactly how he wanted. That video did very well, which of course was the idea for exposure and stuff like that. And in a world where it's quite hard to trick people, that's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We tricked people, and people are like, wait a minute, is this real? And that's great. That's what we went out to do. I'm not going to be, I should really keep up the pretense, but I think in 2020, you have to give your audience a little bit more respect than that. I always say you can log on to Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast now and hear him talking about the WrestleMania 13 match against Bret Hart. If Stone Cold Steve Austin is doing it, who do I think I am to sit on my big high horse go, it was all real? No, it wasn't. But it was an awesome little thing that had this cool caveat where Haku was going to kill us. So it was great though. It really was good.
It was. You could see the for a split 3 or 4 seconds where it, working in the business, you're going, yeah, this is a great work. This is really. Oh shit.
I mean, that's how I felt.
Haku just running at you and swinging.
And he swung at one point, right? And he literally just grazed my arm like that. No harder than I'm doing that there. I had a bruise for a week. And I was like, oh my gosh, he barely touched me. So imagine he landed one on you strong.
Yeah.
Who even knows?
I know. But what an experience as well. And to have that respect with the likes of Tama, who is a phenomenal guy. We've crossed paths in the past as well. He's a great guy. He really is. So, it's nice of him to kind of be in on that with you guys as well.
Oh, absolutely. Tama Tonga gets what wrestling is in 2020, I think, far better than some people give him credit for. Yeah. He understands what you have to do. He understands where we're at, where we need to go, what he wants to do. He is an awesome dude. He just is. I've got nothing but good words to say about it. Apart from the fact that his family tried to kill me. Outside of that, all of them. There's the whole Bullet Club are, as human beings. I don't want to ruin their rep, but just good people, just really good people.
It's good. It's good to hear, man, because obviously you do hear stories, but it's nice to kind of get that little, I guess, like you say, caveat in there. These guys are real people and they're great people to speak with as well.
Oh yeah, really. I look back now, like you just said. I can't believe it's over a year ago now, but it was an awesome week, like from start to finish. Yeah, it was just great.
Now, we did touch up very briefly on your wrestling career. You attempted it in your 20s, didn't quite fit at the time, but now in your 30s, you're all over the place. You're doing really well.
I was trying, and then the world got locked down. But it was, again, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It was just. I can't, when you pass 30, you're like, okay, if I want to get some stuff done, I've got to get some stuff done now. And if I don't, I have to accept that maybe a regret. And I regret scare me more than anything. I use them as fuel mostly. So I thought I'm just going to do it. And I was a bit apprehensive because, again, I tell everyone, I tried in my 20s 2 or 3 times. I can never remember. And I failed because I just wasn't mentally strong enough to deal with it. No reason why. Just as a human being, I hadn't experienced enough or I hadn't prepared myself beforehand. And yet when I turned 30 years old, I just turned into, I don't give a crap, man. Like in a good way, though. In a good way, like, Miller doesn't do this or Miller does this. And I'm like, but I just want, if you don't like it, cool. If you like it, I know who I am. And I'm just going to ride that out on my own little journey. And you can come or you can not come. Whereas before, I think I would have been a lot more like me, maybe. But you know what I mean? More of that. And that really helped me when I went to sort of, wrestling training at that point. And my debut was actually on April the 20th. So almost 2 years ago, April the 28th, 2018 was my debut. So We're coming up to 2 years in. And I've loved every single second of it. Every single second of it has been awesome. And to think now, again, I'm at a point where I can have a chat with you and you're like, Miller, you're everywhere. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So
it's awesome to think that, obviously you attempted this career path, many years ago, didn't work out, but obviously you've got to this point. You went to Al Snow's training academy as well.
Indeed, yeah.
How was that?
I mean, I'd still be falling on my head attempting flip bumps if it wasn't for Al Snow. Obviously, Al Snow wasn't there every week because he would fly in sort of once a month. And I just couldn't get flip bumps done. I cut my head open twice. People forget this now because obviously we documented it on WhatCulture. But I scalped myself at one point. I hit the floor with just not well, and I scraped it, and it literally took the top layer of skin off my bald patch of all things. Thanks, all that. And I had proper hospital. I didn't need hospital, but it was so They're like, you need to get that checked out. And I had to
Yeah.
walk around with a damn like gauze wrapped around my head for a few days, which is no fun in case you're interested. And then within 20 minutes of Al Snow coming for my first session with him, I was flip bumping because he's just that good a teacher. And I think most people know that from his Tough Enough days or his TNA stuff that he did. He's just an incredible, incredible teacher, and he understands how to deal with people on an individual level. Does this guy need to kick up the ass? Does this guy need a bit more of a softer touch? He had that down, and yeah, it was amazing. And honestly, sort of, I just wouldn't be, and I still got loads to go, but I wouldn't be in the position where I am now if it wasn't for Al Snow. And that sentence alone is ridiculous. Because what? But it's true. It is true.
It's crazy to think such a legend like Al Snow kind of put all that time and effort, even just to flying over to the UK. I mean, it's not a short flight for him, and then to put that time and effort into his students and people like yourself who are now becoming, successful in the indie circuit in the UK. It's down to his character. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
And just how good he is at the training aspect of stuff. Because I couldn't train. If someone said, Miller, train me, I'd be like, it's a waste of both our time. I can't do it. I don't. Some people are just born to do it. I'm not one of those people. Whereas I'm 99% sure he could train anyone to at least be a competent wrestler, or at least have one match if he knew. Yeah, he's amazing.
So back to your debut, which was at Defiant, wasn't it, if I remember correctly? So let's talk me through your nerves before that match. So obviously this has been your dream for a long time. You've been doing wrestling at a different capacity for a long time, but this is your first time in a ring in front of a crowd.
I mean, terrified. Like, it was, I think I drove up to WhatCulture the day before because it was the first Saudi Arabia show. So I did the live stream with the guys, and then it was the Defiant show the next day. And I just remember during that, it's a good 6.5, 7 hour drive from me to Newcastle. And I remember the whole way I was just nervous. And then checked into my hotel nervous, did the stream nervous, woke up nervous. It was just a barrel of nerves. And then before I went out and I was behind that curtain, I was, oh my gosh, someone could have blown on me and I would have flown off. I was just terrified. I was like a wet blanket. But as soon as my music hit and I didn't know what people were going to do. They may have just been like, oh, this guy, who knows? But I had such a warm reception. And everyone said to me, they said, Simon, I've never seen anyone smile so much during their entrance ever. I was like, I wasn't doing anything. I was completely in that moment. I was completely zoned in. I went on to hit the worst clotheslines anyone's ever seen in the history of professional wrestling. But I think most people would say that too. But I mean, it was amazing. If you go back and look who's in that ring, what? Yeah. I mean, it's a who's who of professional wrestling. And I remember they said, all right, Miller, go in, do this. And then once your little bit is done, go to Doug Williams. I was like, okay, what do I do when I get to Doug Williams? I said, just go to Doug Williams. And I was like, I need more than that. They went, go to Doug Williams. Did this, but go to Doug Williams. Easy as pie. I mean, what an incredible pro wrestler with he just held my hand, walked me through the whole thing. Yeah, just, one of the best things I've ever done. And an experience that will be topped by few in my life, genuinely. And you get some disparaging people on the internet going, oh, it's just a little venue in front of a few hundred fans. It's not the point. It's the situation. Not. It's how I felt. It's the reaction I got that I deemed to be a very nice one. All those things come together to create a memory for myself. Sure, if you show it to casual WWE fan that sees the Hardy Boys coming back at WrestleMania, that's ridiculous. But you show it to people that know the story and the context, and that's where it comes from. So, I'll
all
never.
Good memories.
Such good, and maybe every now and then I watch it back. Maybe.
So we'll do the generic question, which we don't do much of on this podcast. But what is your favourite memory so far of your wrestling career? I mean, although it'd be only a few years old at the moment.
Of course, yeah. I mean, the debut is up there. It really, really is, because again, just everything we've talked about. But again, the amount of people that I've met through wrestling has been the best, and they're all just so nice and so helpful. And I often thought to myself, well, let's say that I was a wrestler sort of in the 15, 20 years ago. I'm not sure how I would have coped in that kind of mentality, just because who I am as a person and how I act. But these days, again, everyone is so welcoming. Some of the best memories I've had is just, it sounds so cliche, but it's true, is just getting in a car with a bunch of guys and driving for 5 hours up the motorway. And sometimes in your head, you're a little bit like, oh, it's going to be difficult, and you're a bit apprehensive. But when you're in the car and there's such good camaraderie, you're like, this is great. This is really fun. It's like a road trip with your friends. Other than that, though, it's just, I think in terms of experiences that I never would have gotten otherwise, it would have been when I had the opportunity to go to South Korea to wrestle. I mean, did I ever plan to go to South Korea? No. And then when someone goes, "Hey, Millie, want to come to South Korea?" I was like, "Yeah." So, that I mean, unfortunately, the other one would have been going to America to wrestle, which I was meant to do all of 10 days ago, but we all know the situation. But yeah, getting to go somewhere completely alien to me, where I don't know I know the culture, but not properly, and I don't know how things work, and it almost feels like you've stepped onto a different planet, and then get to wrestle, which is like a universal language. And as soon as I was in the ring, I was like, oh, this is like wrestling in England. This is brilliant. It really, really, really was brilliant.
With that in mind, obviously South Korea was one you've already been able to tick off the list. Where would Simon Miller like to wrestle? You know, would it be Japan? Would it be Mexico? America, obviously.
Definitely America. I mean, definitely. I had 2 bookings. Unfortunately, they got wiped out during this, but that's okay. Let's just, increase the dangling carrot. But otherwise, yeah, anywhere. Like Germany. Germany's got an amazing wrestling scene. Yeah. Imagine somebody reached out to go there. Australia, and that's burgeoning. That would be awesome. You mentioned Japan. I don't know whether I'm the right kind of wrestler for Japan, but would I say no? Of course not. Like, that's another place where if you're good, you go to Japan. So I take that as a massive pat on the back. And it's exactly the same with Mexico, right? If you're talking about places wrestlers want to go, it's just basically Europe to a few places: Australia, Japan, Mexico, whatever I said, America, sorry, not Australia. But really, if anybody wants to book me and put me on a plane, like I worked for Discovery sort of in my first few months, and they put me on, I went to Scotland, and I was like, why am I in Scotland wrestling? Like, it still just blows my brain. So yeah, anywhere, but they'd be the big ones, just because I think that's also a sign that you're doing well, because they are hotbeds for the product, and that's what you want to try and follow.
Yeah, no, absolutely, couldn't agree more. I think I'd be, there's several promotions, but I'd certainly like to go to the States doing what I do, and Mexico. I mean, places like Crash are just filled like with talent and ridiculous wrestling styles that are just so much fun.
And that's the other thing as well. You always work upwards. So the more people that you can work who are better than you, the quicker you're going to get better. And you can only do that by going to places like Crash and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of mentioned MLW, but I kind of want to chip in with some other big promotions. There's so much wrestling out there these days. Obviously, when I was growing up, it was WWE or WCW. It was one or the other. You could flick between channels if you were quick enough to catch certain parts. But these days we have the luxury. Now, for someone like yourself, who's a multimedia man, who's on YouTube every single day, more or less, between 7 and 8 shows a week, usually.
Overexposed.
You have so much to talk about these days. We have so much to watch with the likes of AEW, WWE, MLW, New Japan. We're so spoiled. How is it for someone like yourself, who's obviously now become a professional wrestler for a living, as well as a multimedia man?
I think you can look at it 2 ways. Mostly, like 95% of me think that it's great, because you don't have to watch everything. That was the 5% bad thing. So again, much like myself, maybe it's oversaturated and maybe it's overexposed. But ultimately, we live in a culture where Netflix, right? There's a million programs or whatever. You choose what you want to watch, and that's the cool thing about wrestling. So if you want your mainstream stuff, WWE is there. If you want your mainstream stuff that's a little bit alternate, you've got AEW. Impact is really cool under the radar stuff. MLW's kicking ass. You've got all the Mexican shows. I mean, all the British, UK, European things. And they all have streaming services, and you can all tap in. And that's why I think it's so badass, because, so many people think, oh, there's too much wrestling on TV. And maybe there is, but you're in control of your time and you're in control of your own remote control. So just pick what you want. I do get people that say, well, I'm a WWE fan first and foremost. Where am I meant to get the time to watch anything else? Of course. And you should just tap out after you've watched Raw and SmackDown, because there's only so many hours in a day. But I'd always much rather there was a bunch of successful companies breeding great wrestlers and offering loads of people to work. I mean, we saw it. Like, I love WWE. I do. There's this idea that we all hate WWE. In terms of the entertainment that WWE has given me, I absolutely love it. But I think, from the years 2001 to 2019, I suppose, where there are a few lean periods because they weren't really being challenged creatively by another company. Of course they were.
Yeah,
and you have people coming out of there saying the same thing. So they know. Doesn't mean there wasn't gold as well. Of course there was. But I just think wrestling as a business thrives much better when you have people prodding each other. It just does. That's just the way that it works. Yeah. So now, really, and we were still in the infancy of it before this global situation happened. Everyone's going, we're 6 months in, and you need to be year 2 year, 3 years in. So I actually think it's a really good time for pro wrestling. I know that TV ratings aren't what they once were. But financially, people were doing well, again, before all of this. So I think it's going to be really good, as long as the economy can recover, but that's a whole different conversation. In terms of where we were, I thought it was very exciting, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, and it's one of those where I just want to kind of go touch on that. You should be a WWE fan or an AEW fan, but it's like, I just want to be a wrestling fan. Like that's it. That's why I do what I do, because I'm a fan of wrestling. Like, I don't need to pick one or the other. I enjoy WWE for what it is. Is it what it used to be at the moment for me personally? No, but I still enjoy it.
Yeah, and that's okay, right? That's okay. I say to everyone, if you watch a soap, I don't really watch soaps, but I understand it. If you watch a soap, you don't enjoy every single storyline that's being told.
No.
You look forward to this and that, and then, okay, I'll sit through this one. And it's the same with wrestling, especially when you have 3 hours on Raw. Nothing can be good for 3 hours.
It's a long time.
It's impossible. So enjoy the bits you enjoy. Yeah, laugh and take the mick out of the bits you don't like. But don't. The one thing that gets me is don't apply the bad bits to. Oh, it's the worst show I've ever seen in my life. No, it was sometimes it is. But there are good bits that you can take away. So yeah, I totally see what you're saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And before we wrap this up, Simon, where can people find you? Obviously, what people may not know, because you don't talk about it that much, is Simon Miller has merch. You have the why stuff, you have the up and down stuff. So tell people where they can find you.
The reason I laugh at the merch is because a few people very close to me say, Simon, no one is worth at selling merchandise than you. You are the worst. And it's because I feel bad. I feel bad selling merchandise. Don't ask me why. Ironically, don't ask me why. I don't know. But even at shows, there have been times at shows, someone can have a t-shirt. I'm like, how much is it? I just go, just give me some money from your wallet. Like, I don't know what it is. I need to get better at it. I'm working on it. But yes, I do have merch, simonmiller.bigcartel.com. I'm going to do a big sale on there, actually, in soon. We may as well talk about, because I only have a few left of each stock. I was going to get more stock in, but the finish to that thing, the global situation. But then there's going to be a bunch of new designs and stuff up there. So yeah, check it out. Otherwise, you can get me on Twitter and Instagram at SimonMiller316. Again, I made that account a very long time ago. Didn't know what the future held. But it works, right? It works.
It does work. It still works.
But it works. And yeah, of course, WhatCulture Wrestling and all of WhatCulture, you can see me pop up across. And if you just want my own crazy brain thrown on YouTube, just search for Simon Miller on YouTube. You can find my own channel, which is just me being weird. If I'm completely honest, that's what it is. But some people like it, and that's all that matters.
Well, I will link all of those below, so I'll make sure people can find you. But definitely, if you haven't already, I'm sure you have. But check out WhatCulture, people, because it's phenomenal. And Simon Miller does some incredibly hilarious, audacious at times things on there, so it's definitely worth checking out.
That's very kind, man. Thank you. Thank you for asking me on here. I genuinely get flattered when people ask me to do this kind of stuff, so thank you very much.
Oh man, it's been absolute pleasure, and we'll do this again. Maybe we can sit down with some mics and do it the old school way at some point. But
hell yeah,
we'll definitely do this again. I really appreciate your time. Obviously, I know you're busy doing home workouts and 8 videos per week and things like that. So.
Per day. I will say this, because sometimes people go, Miller, you're doing too much. They're probably right, but I really, really love my job. And I know that one day it may go away, because YouTube is so fleeting anyway. So for now, I'm just going to throw myself into as much as I can. And when it peters out, I'll be like, well, Simon, you couldn't have gotten more out of it. And I think that's a cool thing. That's what I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more. I think, it's one of those times where we enjoy what we do for a living, because that's why we do it, right? Like, we've got to enjoy it. We've got to have fun with it. And you're certainly doing exactly that. So, once again, man, I really appreciate your time. And thank you very much for coming on.
No problem. Thank you, man. You take care.